How many total lines of dialogue are in the movie A Quiet Place Part 1? You'll be really surprised by the answer and how the first two Quiet Place films are meant to be interpreted according to the director, John Krasinski. A lot of people misinterpret what these films are meant to be saying. So find out the answers to both these questions in this video.
A Quiet Place was written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, and it was based on an idea that they had while they were in college. The script was shown to Michael Bay at Paramount Pictures, and an executive there thought that this could actually be a really good crossover with the Cloverfield franchise. But then after reading the script a little bit more, they decided to go ahead and make this a standalone film. The script was then sent to John Krasinski. He read the script, loved it so much that he wanted to be part of the creative process. So he contacted the writers, expressed an interest in co-writing the script, and also directing. Some of his changes to the story included the use of sign language, sand pass lights, and the walks into town when they go to the pharmacy. When Krasinski was rewriting the story, he actually had his wife, Emily Blunt, in mind to play the role of Lee's wife, Evelyn. But she was reluctant to do it at first. She was working on another film, and they had just had their first child, and he didn't really want to pressure her into doing it. But after she read his script, she felt like she needed to be a part of this because it really spoke to her as the feeling she was getting of not being able to protect her family in a time of crisis. Millicent Simmons plays Reagan Abbott, Lee and Evelyn's teenage deaf daughter. Krasinski wanted a deaf actress for the role because, as he says, a deaf actress would help my knowledge and understandings of the situation. So all actors on set learned American Sign Language. They even had a coach on set to help with any mistakes that may have been made. Each character had their own different way of signing. The father used short signs to show his urgency of survival, and the mother was a little bit more expressive with her signing. All in all, in the film, there was about 95 words the entire movie that took up about 83 seconds of film time.
Initially, some people interpreted these films as some kind of political metaphor, but according to John Krasinski, that was just a coincidence. He didn't intend for the films to be read as any kind of political statement at all. He was just worried about whether or not he would be a good father. It's really effective in that way, too. In the film, Evelyn is pregnant and having a baby in a world where if you make a sound, that's basically a death sentence. They would have to get really creative if they were going to bring a baby into this world without attracting the creatures. So think about the timeline. At the beginning of the film, they lost their son Bo to the aliens, and it's kind of hard to figure out why they would risk getting pregnant in a world like this where having a baby could get your entire family killed. So is that a stupid decision, or is it meaningful? Is it a statement about life not being worth living without love? And that's kind of a statement about faith. So as far as we know, it's ambiguous why they made this decision. But as far as we know, it's a conscious decision that they're going to find a way to help this baby survive. They're going to be forced to try to be very good, caring, protective parents. We don't live in a world that is near as dangerous as the one presented in this film, but the metaphor still works for us. I was having a conversation with my wife this year because we were having a baby, and my concern was like, do I really want to raise a child in this world? I'm really worried about the things that he's going to have to face. And she kind of had to talk me into, hey, you need to see the positive side of these things. This isn't all negative. And the film's going to kind of make the case that it's worth fighting to give our kids a better future. Even, if things look pretty bleak, like what do we have if we don't have love and a family? And that's a very spiritual theme. On the other hand, it is interesting to note that almost everyone who died in the film died because kids attracted creatures or made mistakes. So kids are not able to survive in this world without adults, yet if the adults have children, well, that's a big risk. It means your odds of dying have increased. So it's an interesting conundrum. The sequel asks audiences the same deep questions explored in the first film. What do you want your life to mean? And in this film, Emmett is faced with the same conundrum that Lee and Evelyn were faced with. How do you survive in a world where noise will get you killed? If you allow other people into your life, particularly kids in this world, the odds of your own death increase significantly. So Emmett initially refused to help Evelyn and the kids. But the film will explore his character change, and he decides Rather than worry about his own personal survival, he's going to worry about the survival of the future and start thinking about his legacy and fight to make the world livable again.
Following the success of the first film, Krasinski takes us back into the world where silence is the key to survival. In A Quiet Place Part 2, Krasinski takes us back before the original movie just to give us a quick snippet of what happened on day one when the aliens arrived. Then the movie jumps right back to the end of Part 1. Reagan and Evelyn has just killed the aliens. Unfortunately, Lee has just died, and now they have to move on. Their house is on fire, obviously making a lot of noise. Probably more aliens will be showing up soon, so they need to get out. As they travel through, they run into Emmett, played by Cillian Murphy. He's someone you saw actually in the flashback. He was at a baseball game and talked to Lee and talked to Reagan and knows of the family. They were friends. Come to find out, his entire family did not make it, and he's by himself. And he does help them a little bit. After resting at Emmett's place for a little while, Reagan decides that she's going to go out and try to find some more people. Why? Because she found a radio signal playing Beyond the Sea by Bobby Darin, and that radio station happens to be on an island. So she puts 2 and 2 together, comes up with 16, decides that she's going to try to get to that island. Well, she sneaks out, and then that's when Evelyn finds out that Reagan is missing. So she begs and pleads to Emmett, who has totally given up on life, to go out and find their daughter. After a little bit of traveling, Emmett catches up with Reagan, and then Reagan convinces Emmett to join her on her journey. They end up on the island after dealing with a couple aliens on the side and find out that there are more people on this island. Unfortunately, one of the aliens happen to make it over to the island as well, because they find out that the aliens cannot swim. Craziness ensues, but everyone comes out on top and kills the aliens. That's when the movie gets kind of interesting. So Drew mentioned that John Krasinski directed Part 1 kind of as a love letter to his children, showing that he would do anything for them. Well, I think Part 2 kind of extends that love letter into a fantasy love letter. Because at the end of the movie, you see Marcus step up. He's always been kind of the scared one. He's been uncomfortable. He, is always covering his ears and crying in Part 1. In Part 2, you see him step up, and he ends up protecting his mom and his baby sibling and kills the alien, walks right up to him. At the same point, Reagan saves Emmett and kills alien while they're on the island. It's that last scene where you see this story kind of come together, because Marcus is standing there after killing the alien, stepping up, saving his family. At the same time, Reagan pulls out what looks to, it was just a piece of metal, but it was kind of like pulling a sword out of a dragon and standing there over the dead body. And again, I think back to when I was a kid or when I was in grade school. That was half my grade school, was me just sitting there fantasizing about doing something amazing like this. And that's what's amazing about this movie, is that Krasinski is continuing his love letter to his children and explaining to them that they can be heroes, they can be strong, they can protect. And I think that just goes along great with Part 1. Another cool little Easter egg is Djimon Hounsou shows up. He's actually one of the people on the island. And, it's the end of the movie and you're thinking, wow, you got somebody big to show up at the end. And then he immediately dies, which made it kind of weird, because why would you hire this great Academy Award nominated actor to show up and be in a movie for 3 minutes and die? Well, the cool Easter egg with that is if you're watching it live when it came out, you don't know that he's going to be in the prequel that they're planning on putting together. So it's actually kind of shocking when you don't know about the prequel and you're sitting there and it's like, oh, hey, here's another cool character that we know. Oh, he's dead. So that made the movie kind of interesting, especially if you watched it at the theaters or before they announced the prequel that was coming out.
So how do you end a year that started with the biggest blockbuster film of all time? You release another one that director Steven Spielberg called the worst script he's ever read. Find out what that film is in this video here.